So that was the pad UI, and basically all the principles for that one pad are the same for all the other banks and all the other pads. Now we're going to go to the control UI, which allows you to control what these are going to be doing, all the different controller sections. So I'm going to scroll up using the push encoder up to knobs, and right now these are set to Arsenal. In the other tutorials I'll show you how to set these up for specific DAWs, but this will show you that for each knob you can change what each bank of knobs is doing because you have the 4 banks. Right now these are set to Arsenal because on the computer right now I have Arsenal running standalone. But if I wanted to, I can toggle all between Arsenal, MIDI, Mackie, and Huey, and I'm actually going to put these in MIDI mode so later on I can show you how to configure specifically what these will be doing if they're in MIDI mode. You can use the push encoder now to go to faders that are also in Arsenal. I'll trigger these to MIDI. Go down to the buttons and toggle all of those to MIDI. I'm going to hit exit. I can scroll down with the push encoder to the advanced section where the DAW control, I can choose between Mackie and Huey depending on what DAW I'm using to control, or the transport, I can switch between these, Mackie, Huey, none. None is just when you're controlling the onboard sequencer. MIDI real time, MMC, MIDI plus MMC, and MIDI CC. So now that I've shown you what the transport and the cursor are going to do, I'm going to scroll up using the rotary to buttons to edit these specifically and show you all the different assignments that you can do. So edit controls, it's going to ask me which one I want to control. It doesn't have to just be the buttons. I can touch any of these and I control or go to different banks and control. But I'm going to just select this button. So right now it said I've selected bank A, button 1. So I'm going to hit edit control, and this is where I'm going to determine which CC value I want this button to send, the press and release value, what type of message, because I could set a NERP in if I wanted, and what type if I wanted to do instead of a momentary, I could just toggle it on and off. Or just do send a single value, so it'll send the on and not the release. You can also select the MSB, LSB, and program channel to do a program change. And back to CC. You can also select the on and off color for the buttons. So if you have a very specific control, when you're banking through your controls, you'll always know what that button. So let's say, if I set the button off to hot pink, I'll always know that hot pink is my special NERPin for my very special synth. You also choose the MIDI channel and the output preference. We'll exit out of that and let's pick a different control. So let's pick a fader. Right now it's told me that I've selected bank A, fader 1, edit control. That's the CC it's currently sending. I can change the min and max value to basically kind of shrink the fader, or actually expand the fader, just lower resolution. The message, a NERPin, and the MIDI channel and the output. And the MIDI channel right now, they're set to the global ones we selected earlier, but just like the other ones, I can set it to USB, jack, or the user preferences, and the MIDI channel. I'll exit out of that, edit controls, and now let's pick a knob. Bank A, knob 1, edit control, the CC number, the min and max value, the type of message. So I can send a NERPin or CC message. So I'll exit out of that. And if I did all of these changes, I would want to save the preset like I explained earlier, because if I don't change the preset and this thing turns off, it's gone and I have to do it again. But once you have the initial setup set up, then basically, depending on whatever configuration you use outside of this device, you can call up the preset very quickly. Other presets that we do have loaded besides right now, this is Arsenal, so if I load that, everything's going to be back in Arsenal mode. But we have it set up for Live, Pro Tools, Logic, Steinberg, Cakewalk, Digital Performer, Studio One. MIDI locks this all into an initial MIDI setup. Mackie puts everything in Mackie control, at least this section of Mackie control. This will stay in Arsenal. Huey, this will all be in Huey. This will stay in Arsenal. And above Huey, we have the major keys and minor keys, which, if you load that, will lock the pads in to actually keys where you have the root, and the proper notes in between. So you don't have to worry about trying to sequence melodically, chromatically, which on pads can be very difficult because each one of the pad banks are going to be different notes. So there won't be consistency. This way, as you go through the banks, there will be consistency when you're sequencing melodically. And also, like I showed you earlier, if you go to the pad focus and change the mapping, if I change bank A to Arsenal, all of a sudden bank A will be locked with Arsenal for like my drums, and bank B, C, and D will be locked into a key for melodic sequencing, and I can set those going out different channels to control different soft synths either in my DAW or my hardware. And because you can instantiate Arsenal as many times in a DAW as you want and going to different channels, I could be running a plethora up to 16 instruments off the 16 MIDI channels with pads doing different things, controlling different instruments, all in the same key. So this is more than just a rhythm sequencer. It basically can become your entire production hub.